All right, so good morning, everyone. What we're going to do is share with you two arrests, one in February, one in May, involving the same person, Burnell Emlet. And I'm going to share with you the arrest in February, read a brief statement to that arrest, share with you some pictures thereafter of that arrest, and then share with you the arrest that we made last Friday night on the same individual. May 22nd, and then we have some pictures as well. And all the pictures, as you can imagine there, will be there on our screen there. And then I've got some statistics too, reference to some of our opioid overdoses between last year and year-to-date 2020. On February 23rd, 2020, at 9 p.m., Vero Beach police officers responded to 16th Street Old Dixie Highway in reference to an unresponsive motorist at a traffic light. Responding officers arrived on scene and located a white male later identified as Burnell Emlet III, slumped behind the wheel of a red Toyota sedan. Upon making contact with Emlet, officers observed signs of intoxication and asked Emlet to exit the vehicle. Upon exiting the vehicle, officers observed a bulge under Emlet's shirt. When officers inquired about the bulge, Emlet stated that he had a concealed pistol under his shirt and that he did not have a concealed weapon permit. Officers subsequently seized an FN semi-automatic pistol, which was located with 21 cartridges. A computer check revealed that Emlet was a convicted felon. Emlet submitted to field sobriety exercises and was subsequently placed under arrest for driving under the influence. A search of Emlet's person incident to arrest yielded 74 individually wrapped packages containing an off-white powder. Special Investigations Unit detectives responded to the scene to assist. A field test of the off-white powder determined the substance contained fentanyl. The 74 packages of fentanyl were later weighed as evidence and found to have a total weight of 7.7 grams. Burnell Emlet III, age 32, of 5809 Killarney Avenue, Fort Pierce, Florida, was arrested and charged with the following charges: trafficking in fentanyl more than 4 grams, possession of a firearm by a convicted felon, driving under the influence, and carrying a concealed firearm. I'm going to show you the pictures from that evening. Here's his booking photo. And I can certainly, at the end, go back to any of the pictures that you would like. That's the red Toyota that was mentioned. The 74 individual wrap fentanyl packages. The same. That's our test kit to the side, our field test kit. This is the FN semi-automatic pistol we were talking about, and again, he's a convicted felon. You'll notice, and I think we have another picture, you notice that's a handgun essentially with basically a rifle round type cartridge. And again, that's the charges: trafficking in fentanyl, possession of a firearm by a convicted felon, driving under the influence, and carry a concealed firearm. We're going to proceed into the case from last week. On Friday, May 22nd at 7:30 p.m., Vero Beach Police Department Special Investigations Unit detective observed a gray Kia sedan driving in an erratic manner southbound on Indian River Boulevard. The vehicle was observed slowing down and speeding up intermittently and crossing the center line several times. The Kia sedan continued to drive in an erratic manner eastbound over the Merrill Barber Bridge and was subsequently stopped by a marked patrol unit at the Holiday Inn, 3384 Ocean Drive. The driver and sole occupant of the Kia was identified as Burnell Emlet III. During the stop, uniformed officers asked Emlet for consent to search his vehicle. Emlet subsequently consented to a search of his vehicle. A search of the vehicle was conducted and the following items were located: 98 alprazolam pills, 2 tinfoil wrappers containing LSD, 3 diazepam pills, 1 plastic baggie of fentanyl, $47,470 in U.S. currency, and multiple syringes. Officers also seized a locked safe in Emlet's trunk. Mr. Emlet was charged with the following that evening: possession of alprazolam with intent, possession of fentanyl with intent, possession of diazepam with intent, possession of LSD, possession of drug paraphernalia. On Tuesday, May 26th, SIU detectives, Special Investigation Unit detectives, applied for a search warrant for Emlet's seized safe. The search warrant was granted, and the search warrant was conducted here at the Vero Beach Police Department. Upon conducting a search warrant of Emlet's safe, we located the following: 17 individually wrapped packages, each containing approximately 100 doses of fentanyl, a total of 1,700 doses of fentanyl. Each baggie had the number 100 written on them, and you'll see that again in the pictures we'll share. And then once more in the safe itself, $7,950 in U.S. currency, and that's a total of $55,420. I'll share with you the photos of that arrest. Again, the booking photo. Not much difference between a couple months or so. I believe that was his medical marijuana. That's the 98 pills. That's your LSD there. Some of the cash, and I believe that cash was located in a laundry wastebasket with some clothing items as well. And again, the 47,000 and change was in that location, and then there was close to 8,000 in the lock safe. So up top there's your safe, and then your cash. All right, then from the warrant, the cash that was noted, that's a fanny pack, if you will. And you'll see a little bit better here as we move forward. He had his fanny pack stuff there with a number of those 17 packages, as I mentioned. And you'll see the black numbers there. Again, 100 was written on each baggie. And each baggie, again, 17 of those bags appear to have 100 doses each. Okay, and again, the charges there, as I mentioned. So what I'd like to do now is share with you some data, and then afterward we can certainly receive some of your questions if you have any. 2019, year to date, so January 2019 to today's date, we had 7 overdoses. 3 of them were fatal. For the total year in 2019, we had 26 overdoses, 8 fatal. 15 male, 11 female in total of our 26. Officers administered Narcan 11 times. So again, 26 total overdoses in 2019. Year to date, 2020, we have 29 overdoses. So we've already surpassed our 2019 overdose number by 3, halfway through 2020. 29 overdoses, 3 fatal. 18 male, 11 female, 17 times Narcan has been administered. And of note, in March, just this past March, we had 10 overdoses, 1 in April, and then 11 this month of May. So 22 of those year-to-date 29 overdoses have been in the last 3 months. So essentially 4 times the amount of overdoses thus far this year in all of last year. Or to year-to-date, we had 7 year-to-date last year. We have 29 year-to-date this year. I'll take your questions.
All right, so Chief, seeing these numbers and dealing with this most recent arrest, what's your reaction as someone who's hoping to keep our streets safe as well as clear of any drugs?
Well, it may take some time, but we're certainly hoping to see this individual, Mr. Emlet, grew up here in Vero Beach, and from our knowledge, pretty much this is where he did his business. So that's a lot of fentanyl. That's a lot of fentanyl, and it's off the street, and he's off the street. So we're hoping that we see our fruits of labor, if you will, in a month or months to come, where we could see some a downtick, if you will, of overdoses that may lead to where, gosh, this was probably one of our main players, if you will, here in Vero Beach as far as selling fentanyl and you know, potentially a nexus to our overdoses as well. We arrested an individual within the last couple of years who's, I think, still in prison, and he was one of our main dealers with regard to fentanyl. And after we arrested him, we certainly know he's not the only dealer, but the cases drastically dropped after his arrest. We're hoping to see the same thing with Mr. Emlet. We've also recently arrested another individual within the last month or so, I think, and he was selling the fentanyl in clear capsules. So, and that person we feel was a pretty strong dealer within the county, not just in the city limits of Vero. So taking that individual off the road and hopefully keeping him and his drugs off the road, and now Mr. Emlet, we hope to see, you know, a decline for sure. We certainly would like and hope to see that.
So CBS 12 News, we've been following the influx of fentanyl, not just within Vero Beach, but the Treasure Coast. We've been working closely to stay on top of fentanyl stories and to track the increase and decrease. Looking at these staggering numbers, as a family man, as someone who's very involved in this community, what's your human reaction to these numbers?
Sadness, for sure. This is our community. We all live here. We know Vero Beach very well. We know our county well. And as I mentioned, we hope that because Mr. Emlet's in jail and probably will be in prison for a long, long time, and now his drugs are off the road, we'll see the benefits of that, of the officers here, of their efforts and the arrests that were made. But it's sadness, you know. The numbers essentially year to date have quadrupled from last year to this year. And one's too many, but we've been working hard. We have meetings with our detectives, with our supervisors, with our community members. If we see an area that seems to be more active than others, then we'll go and try to meet with property owners, landlords, things like that, and try to nip that in the bud, if you will. But I think the key word is sadness. You know, we've had people that have overdosed more than once, and we've been able to bring them back or reverse the opioid effect via Narcan. But we also have gone to an individual where we've gotten to it for a third time and watched them pass away. Just not able to help them. They were too far gone. So, you know, those individuals, albeit maybe on tough times, you know, have children, have parents, have relatives, have friends, and you just hate to see that.
And talking about the tough times, do you see any correlation with the pandemic and the lockdown with the increase in cases of overdose?
You know, again, 10 in March and 11 in May during this time. I think you could argue, or I could even argue, a bit of a case, a factor, let's say. I think I mentioned, but I've been on the board of the Substance Awareness Center for 12 or 8 years now, and we were talking about that because we all know, unfortunately, some people don't want help, but there are people that do, that have not been able to maybe get the help they were getting face-to-face, in-person counseling, visitation type things that were normally going on that had to stop, albeit now they could maybe call in or Zoom in or something like that, but not everyone's capable of that either. So I definitely think there could be a certain factor there where not only these people can't have their regular visits, regular one-on-ones, they also, and they don't have the ability maybe from a technological standpoint to Zoom in or what have you, but it's also tough times too. Could it be someone that had an issue or a problem with drugs, also has less work or not a job at all? Are there issues that are coming up at home? So sometimes things snowball, unfortunately, for people, and they get worse because of that. So it certainly could be a factor. And it's something we may not see or realize until down the road as well.
I did have a question. So going back to the individually wrapped packages of fentanyl.
Yes.
Can you repeat how many individually wrapped packages were in each arrest, in each case?
Sure. So for the February arrest, February 23rd arrest, we had 74 individually wrapped packages.
Okay.
For last Friday, May 22nd, 17 individually wrapped packages, each containing approximately 100 doses. So a total of 1,700 doses, 1,700 doses.
Okay.
And again, each bag, each of the 17 bags had that 100 noted on them.
Okay.
The number 100.
Okay. And how much cash was seized total in cases?
Total between the money that was in the car, and then we made the search warrant on the safe, total $55,420.
So Chief, have you seen anything like this before when it comes to the seized drugs and money pertaining to Vero Beach within this agency? Have you all investigated anything on this magnitude?
With fentanyl, no. And this is probably one of the larger drug arrests we've made in some time, period. But with fentanyl, absolutely not. Again, you're talking, just if we look at the 1,700 doses, that's $10 to $30 a dose on the street. And I'm very proud of the men and women here for the work they do, number one, but obviously for taking those drugs off the street. That's a lot of fentanyl here in the city limits of Vero Beach, without question. So, absolutely.
Do we have any idea where the fentanyl came from? We get an idea of the fentanyl highway, meaning the means of how it transports into the Treasure Coast, making its way either from the south or north.
Yeah.
Do we know where this particular fentanyl came from?
Well, we certainly know, fentanyl itself mainly comes from China. So it comes into our country via different avenues, channels, what have you. And once it's in our country, it's unfortunately in probably all our cities. And how does it get here, you're asking? From brief interviews with the individual, and we're still doing some follow-up, so we're not able to share everything, but we believe this fentanyl that he had on him is from the Orange County, Orlando area. Now, where did it come from there? We don't know that.
And I just have one last question. Chief, what do you say to the folks who may be watching this and think they can get away with selling drugs or passing drugs in and out of your city? What do you say to them? Well,
I say count your days because most likely you're going to end up in jail. So get your affairs in order because the clock is ticking, just like it did for Mr. Emlet. And that's where he is now. And he knows he's going to be there for a long time.
I did have one question going back to the first arrest. Can you repeat the...
Okay, Nick.
Can you repeat the location of that first arrest? I know you mentioned the second arrest happened.
He was slumped over his driver's wheel at 16th and Old Dixie.
Okay.
Yeah. Unfortunately, Mr. Emlet was a user of the product himself.
And any idea, I guess, where he was selling this fentanyl at? Was he selling it outside of his home, or? Do you know?
Specifically, no.
Okay.
As far as where, here in Vero, for sure.
Okay, gotcha. And is this case connected to any other drug cases, any other major drug cases, any other major players? Anything
Well,
like that?
and, you know, as far as him specifically, no. I mentioned an individual, I think the last name of Williams, that we arrested not long ago, was dealing fentanyl. And again, he was selling it in clear capsules, and he went to jail. So there's no connection between him and Mr. Emlet, for instance.
Okay.
But Mr. Emlet, again, I mentioned it, he grew up here in Vero Beach, and this is where he grew up, and this is where he has been conducting business. Now, has he been conducting business outside of Vero Beach? We don't know, but it seems like most, if not all, here in Vero Beach.
Okay. And sorry, but can you say again the specific items that were found in
No.
that safe?
In the safe, Nick?
Yes.
All right.
The safe.
So, 17 individually wrapped packages, each containing approximately 100 doses of fentanyl. Again, for a total of 1,700 doses. And then the $7,950 in currency. The $47,470 was in the laundry basket with clothes and those other items I talked about, the 98 alprazolam pills, the LSD, the diazepam.
Okay. And so the firearm was not in that safe. It was just in the vehicle.
The firearm was from the first arrest.
All from the first place.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
firearm he had in his waistband, slumped over the wheel in his waistband, 21 cartridges, again, showing you the significance of the round, essentially a rifle-style round in a semi-automatic handgun. But that was the first arrest, and again, a convicted felon.
Was that firearm stolen? How did he get his hands on that, being a convicted felon?
Well, I don't have that for you right now. I'm not sure if we ever discovered that. Where, if it was stolen, I don't believe it was stolen. I'm not sure where he purchased it or where he obtained that firearm.
And you said he's a convicted felon.
Yes.
Was he convicted on just past drug charges?
Previous arrest.
And I know you said this already, but could you again talk about the dangers of fentanyl in the community?
Well, you know, I'll give you a quick story, and of course no names, but we had an individual that, a young, under 30 female, that is one of our 3 fatalities this year. And to our understanding, she thought her pill was a Dilaudid or an Oxy or something like that. Meanwhile, she had a very high dose of fentanyl and dropped dead right there on the spot. And I think she had a child.
Wow.
So, you know, it's just like any drug. You're playing Russian roulette. You think you know what you have. You know, everyone's body and how we're made up chemically and how we react to things are different. So, you know, somebody can take the same dose as another person and it may affect them more. But again, when I say Russian roulette, you think you're taking fentanyl, and maybe you are. But what else is there? You know, is it heroin with fentanyl? Is it marijuana with fentanyl? We all know that fentanyl is like 10 times the strength of heroin alone, and heroin is so deadly. So it's just the unknown. With whatever illegal narcotic you're taking, it can be laced with something else which compounds the problem and potentially the effect on your body and how your body reacts. Like I said before, you know, Narcan only reverses the effects of an opioid drug, you know, and, you know, they know, users know that law enforcement have Narcan for the most part. And that's why they'll be out in the parking lot somewhere where they can be seen, or somewhere people know where they're at, because they know that if they overdose and don't come out of it quickly, someone will call or someone will be there, and then we'll be there with Narcan. Because I said, you know, we've had a few die on us that we've gotten to for the third time. We've been able to reverse the effects maybe once or twice, but the third time we weren't able to help the person.
So fentanyl, it can be deadly potentially within like a matter of like minutes or seconds.
Absolutely. We don't even want to touch it as law enforcement, you know, as far as testing, what have you. We send it down to the lab. It's so lethal, period, to ingest it in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah, Chief, I was gonna say, you know, not only getting this stuff off the streets for the people, Vero, but to get it, you know, off the streets for the officers that are on the streets looking for that stuff. It's gotta be, I guess, comforting to know that all that stuff is off the streets now. That's less fentanyl that your officers have to worry about.
Yeah, it's a dangerous drug, and that's a good point, because it's a dangerous drug for the user, obviously. But for the men and women on the streets responding to calls and making traffic stops and keeping our community safe, they have to be trained and be cognizant of what they may come in contact with, have the appropriate gear to safeguard themselves, their bodies, because we've seen stories of it being on clothing items and then you know, being basically overdosing from inhaling it, what have you. So yeah, without question. I know this is such a big seizure for Vero Beach and our police department, and I know I'm not the only proud one here. It's the men and women that do the work to make the street safer. So yes.
All right, well, thank you for your time.
What type of protective gear? I know he just asked about the protective gear that the
Yeah.
officers wear when they do these fentanyl arrests. Can you talk about the type of gear that they?
Yeah, and again, you know, you don't necessarily know it's fentanyl right away.
Okay.
You know, so with any approach with something, the unknown or drug-related, you know, a barrier is important, whether, you know, gloves, that kind of thing, distance, knowledge, setback, you know, ask questions, you know, if something you know, there's people on scene. A lot of times there's people on scene because they're the ones that have called us, friends, oh yeah, that's, you know, and there's evidence on scene. Is there a syringe? You know, or how are they ingesting it, what have you. So you have to, you don't necessarily rush in. You may move fairly quick, but you also observe your scene and your setting there. As far as, is there evidence around of drug use? You know, what am I looking at? Because we can't help you if we're not healthy. If the officer goes in and rushes in and somehow the drug affects he or her, then we're not able to help the individual. So the scene itself helps us in observing what's there, people there. Okay, what was the drug to your knowledge? You know, what did they take? What have you. So we get information that way. And again, we've got the masks, we've got the gloves, we've got the footies, we've got the gowns, whatever we need as far as the barrier goes. The guys and gals have it readily available.
Thanks,
All right?
Chief.
All right, thank you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming.